Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about the society. I'm trying to bring down the quantum mechanical view to a society in a very, very generalistic view. And obviously, I would like to connect it with the human behavior. So, in this series, what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about the quantum mechanics of society. So, it's like moving from particles to the pupil. So, what if I tell you that the way we understand society is fundamentally incomplete. The way we look at it, the way we try to perceive a society. And what if I tell you, what if human behavior is not like a machine, a mechanical machine? Human behavior is not predictable. It's not fixed, but but it is but it is something far more mysterious, far more deep down. So what if deep down society behaves more like the quantum world than the classical world? This is the basic argument. This is a fundamental argument. And as we understand what society is, you have a society built from humans. So today we begin a journey. Maybe I may call it an intellectual journey where physics meets sociology, where particles, the microscopic particles, meet pupil, and maybe, and where reality itself becomes an open question. So, this is our argument. This is something that we are going to talk about. And to start with, what's the argument? The argument is the quantum mechanics of society. And the quantum mechanics of society from particles to the pupil. So we want to go with this argument. We want to learn this. We want to understand that can we actually implicate the laws of quantum mechanics to describe the behavior of a society? So in this series, we will explore this a radical idea that the same principles, that the same laws, the principles used to describe the, the smallest particles in, in the universe. So friends, this is our argument, and the particles in the universe can actually help us understand the human behavior, the human beings, the human societies, and the relationships. And maybe even it can take us down to the consciousness. So we will talk we will talk about this. We'll talk about the most important things that we would like to connect with the society. And the very fundamental thing about them is superposition in identity. Then we'll try to talk about the observation and social behavior. Obviously, entanglement in human relationships. It's a very fundamental argument of the quantum mechanics that you can have entangled particles, and not least, at least the uncertainty in decision making, because the laws of quantum mechanics has everything to do with these particles, but we are trying to connect these particles to the human beings and ultimately the nature of human reality itself. But again, I would like to say that today we will begin with the foundation. We will try to go to the gross root level. We'll try to go to the very fundamental level. A simple but a profound question. The question is society classical, or is it something else? Classical, as we understand from the laws of physics, the Newtonian physics. You can describe the things using Newton's laws. So, what do we mean by classical here? As I said, if I take an argument, let us start very simply. Let's begin in a very simplistic fashion. What we have in classical physics. In classical physics, the world is completely predictable. You can predict each and every action of an object. And if you throw a ball, we can exactly calculate where this ball is going to land on the ground, taking into the consideration the gravity of the earth. So if I know the forces that are acting on this ball, I can accurately predict the future of this ball. I can predict the motion of this ball. So everything follows the clear laws, the laws of classical physics. Now, think about society. A group of large number of people, a very large number of people. Can you predict a human being the same way? Can you predict what's going to happen, how the humans are going to behave exactly and accurately? If you know someone completely, can you always predict what they will do? The answer to this question is, I will say no. You cannot exactly predict what this man is going to do. Now the question arises, why? Why you cannot exactly predict what this person is going to do? Because the answer to this question is because humans are not the classical objects. They are deep down quantum mechanical. Now, if I take a simple example, the same person, different behavior. If I choose this as an example, what am I trying to tell you is that if you imagine a person, and this person is at home. A person or persons at home, they are calm, respectful, soft spoken. Now at work, they are maybe confident, maybe they try to dominate, and maybe even they are aggressive. I'm trying to build a case here. And now with friends, they're humorous, they're relaxed, they feel comfortable. Now, tell me. So, I have described the three important situations. Now, tell me which one is the real person. You have the person in the home, the person in the office, and the same person with the friends. Is there one fixed identity, or they are true at the same time, at the same point of time? The three arguments, the three scenes, the three points. So here, this is where classical thinking fails. The Newtonian thinking fails. The laws based on the classical physics, they fail. Because in classical systems, one object, you have one object, it has one state. And if you think about the humans here, but in human society that we are talking about, a group of people, a large group of people, you have a person with multiple states. A person has a state at home, it has a state in the office, it has a state with the friends. So there are multiple states. And this begins to look like something very familiar in quantum mechanics. This kind of behavior that you can introspect, it seems to have the connection with the very fundamental argument of the quantum mechanics. So now we'll take on the failure of classical sociology. So if you're trying to understand the social structure based on these classical arguments, there's a failure. And the traditional sociology often assumes that people have fixed roles, and it assumes that behavior can be categorized clearly. You can clearly categorize the behavior of a society. And what it tells us that society follows some stable kind of patterns. But reality tells us something different. The real outcome is different. It does not match with those absolute arguments of the social structure. Human behavior is, human behavior is, it is context dependent. The another argument can be it is unpredictable. You cannot predict the behavior of a person. And it's perfectly influenced by the observation. The humans have a behavior that depends on the point of observation. And there is a constantly shifting nature of this behavior. What I'm trying to tell here is, let me give you another example to make a case here, to build a case here. Crowd behavior. I'm trying to talk about the crowd behavior. Let's take an individual. Take an individual person, one person alone. Alone, they may be peaceful. but place them in a crowd. You have a person alone, peaceful. Place him in a crowd. Now, suddenly, emotions amplify. There's amplification of emotions. You have decisions. Decisions keep on changing in the crowd. And and behavior. The behavior becomes unpredictable in a crowd. Unpredictable. Now, we should ask a question to ourselves. Now, you can ask a question yourself. Did the person, did the person change, or maybe did the system change? We can ask this question to ourselves. And in classical framework, in classical thinking, and we call it in Newtonian way of thinking, we blame the individual. But in quantum like view, in quantum mechanical perspective, in quantum mechanical framework, in the domain of quantum mechanical laws, the system defines the behavior of this person. So the system is dictating the behavior of this person. Now, let's enter into the quantum thinking. Let's try to build our case in quantum thinking. In quantum mechanics, particles do not behave like solid objects. The particles are not point balls. They are not point objects. They behave like probabilities. They behave like outcomes. They do not have fixed state until measured. This is a very, very strong argument of quantum mechanics. Now, apply this idea to humans. A society is built out of humans. Now, if we take this down to humans, before a situation arises, a person has many possible responses. The person has many possible responses. What am I trying to tell here is he has anger in him. He or she has anger in him, silence in him, kindness in him, indifference in him. There are many things that are lying within the human behavior. But when the moment comes, when the system comes, when the observation comes, only one person appears. Only one person appears. The person is made of many persons. And this is just like in quantum systems. This is just like in those mathematical arguments that we have in quantum mechanics. There are many, many possibilities. But once you observe, you have only one outcome. Now let's take on this to a simple example. And this example will certainly have to do something with the argument of decision moment. This person is made of all these arguments that I was talking about. What you do is you receive a message. You can you can ignore it, or you can reply it politely, or you can reply this message in a very angrily fashion. You can reply it angrily, or you can delay the response. These are the possibilities. These are the possibilities before you make an action, before you act. So, what's here? You have all the possibilities exist within you. A response of anger, a response of politeness, no response. But the moment you respond, one reality is chosen. One reality comes. And this is very similar. This quite resembles to how quantum systems behave, how quantum systems interact. Now, let's take this journey on why society is not classical. So we have societies, we cannot call them as classical societies. The classical arguments of sociology, they are not classical. Let's try to let's try to summarize it. Let's try to frame it. A classical system requires predictability. You threw the ball, you know what's going to happen because it has fixed states. It has fixed states. It has clear cause and effect. But society shows uncertainty. Society shows unpredictability. Society shows multiple possibilities. So the context, you have the context driven outcomes. Now, what does it mean? What we are understanding from this point of view? This means society is not classical. Society is no way classical. It behaves more like a system of probabilities. It believes, it works on these probabilities, interactions, and hidden potentials. So this sets a stage for us to further understand that the society is not classical in nature. Society is quantum mechanical in nature. Now, what's the role of observation in society? As we have the role of observation in the physical systems. Now, let me introduce a powerful idea here, a very strong idea, which we will explore. We will explore this idea deeply in the upcoming series of lectures. And there we will try to introspect the argument. So, in quantum mechanics, in quantum physics, observation, what it does, it changes the system. The system has many probabilities, but once you make an observation, you have one outcome. Now, think socially. If we think in terms of a society, a group of people, and you might have noticed You might have noticed when people are being watched, they behave differently. They behave in in different. Their behavior is different depending on that observation. A student behaves differently in front of a teacher. He doesn't behave in the same way as he does in front of his parents. A person behaves differently in public versus private. You have different behavior of the same person in the different social structure, in the different social framework. Social media. Social media changes how we present ourselves. So we can ask, we can ask ourselves. So you ask yourself, is behavior independent or is it influenced by the observation? So, observation, the photon in physics is replaced by an observer in terms of a human being. What this is going to do with us is this question will become central in our series that we'll be discussing in future. This will be the main argument. We'll try to connect with the social structure that we live in. And if I take an example over here, social media identity. Now, what happens on social media? On social media, you carefully choose. You choose the likes. You choose what to post. You choose how to present yourself. Make a choice. What image you would like to interpret, what image you would like to create, what argument you would like to put on. Is that the real you who is writing on the social media? Or is it a version? Or is it a version shaped by the observation? So this can be the argument. This can be the argument that we can take on. And again, we see reality is not fixed. It's not an absolute identity. Reality is not fixed. It is influenced. It keeps on being influenced. And if we take on this argument to a society as a whole, society as a dynamic system, where you have a large number of people. Now let's go deeper into this idea. You have a large number of people. And in classical thinking, in classical perception, society is made of individuals. It's made of point masses. It's made of point particles. But in quantum-like system, but in quantum-like framework, but in quantum-like perspective, society is made of interactions. Not just pupil, but relationship. The relationships between the pupil. And these relationships are a result of that interaction. And think about it. You are not just you. I'm not just me. You are. You are basically, you are maybe a son or a daughter, maybe a colleague, a friend, a cousin, a brother, a sister, a teacher, or a student. So your identity changes depending on the circumstances, depending on the type of interactions that you are undergoing. So, what defines you? What can I tell about you? The answer is maybe it's the interaction that defines your identity. You are what your interaction is dictating you to be. Now, why this series that we are going to talk about in future, why this series matters? You might ask this question, that why we want to go into this series of lectures where we'll be trying to talk about the human behavior, the society, and the quantum principles. Why are we studying society in this way? Why not to study it purely in classical fashion? And the answer to this question is because this perspective changes everything. The perspective of realizing the mathematical arguments, the Schrodinger's wave equation, it certainly changes. It changes how we understand the human behavior. And it becomes a more fundamental argument to understand the human behavior, filled with the uncertainty principle, filled with the superposition, filled with entanglement, conflict, relationships, social systems. So these are the frameworks, not only these systems, even the consciousness that arises out of all these arguments. It teaches us humility because we realize we are not fixed beings. We are not the fixed particles. We are not the particles having only one kind of character. We are possibilities unfolding in time, unfolding in the growth of time. So, with this, I would like to stop here, and I hope you like it. And in the next episode, we will try to explore further in a correlation